Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you again. Welcome to Talking Books with Tanisha. Today we are looking at Unbound by Tarana Burke. Part of her cover is in the background. I love the coloring on this cover of this book. You'll have a chance to see it as soon as I get it pulled up. There we go. Just has a really good picture of her, a visual, and then like the title. This is what it looks like. Um, I grabbed this book actually from Cannon Beach on that main strip in the middle of the city. There's a bookstore, um, and we were there a couple weeks ago for vacation and decided to stop at the bookstore. And I saw that on the shelf, and I had been meaning to pick it up anyway. But I decided that was a good time to get it, so I grabbed it from there. Um, Another local small bookstore, and I went ahead and read it the last couple of days, and I've really been I want to say enjoying, but enjoying is probably not the right word. I would say that this is a book that is, I think, important to read. It's a really important read, and there's lots of different reasons why. We'll kind of get into that in just a second. But welcome back. Thanks for being here. I hope that you have found some really good books that you've been reading as well. I want to do a couple of little housekeeping things before I go into this book for today. First, please know that you can always leave comments in the comment section after you of this video. So please feel free as you are going through any of the episodes to leave comments about the books that you've read or your reactions to things that I've shared or your reactions to the books. If you have suggestions for books that might be kind of like the book that I talk about or a book that people should read, please drop those suggestions as well. Know that I will be doing some giveaways during this season. This is season 1, and so I will be doing some giveaways. And so stay tuned for more information about what those giveaways will be and how you can enter for those. And then mostly just want to let you know that who I am is kind of an important part of why I do this. I was a classroom teacher for 16 years, taught first and second grade, and also taught middle school. And one of the most important things I ever did was introduce my students to all different kinds of books with different characters, different stories, what we call windows and mirrors, where opportunity to kind of see yourself reflected in really affirming ways, and also a way to see into the lives of others. And so I know the power that books have. I know that stories that can be told and shared can open up opportunities for understanding and empathy. I also know that people who have access to literacy and literature have access to a lot. And so not having access to good books or good stories is pretty much unacceptable in this day and age. We need to make sure that there are books and stories and literature available for everyone. So as an educator, I feel really dedicated to that mission. As an avid reader myself, I know that books are really important. And so I always try to find ways to immerse myself and my family in all different kinds of books. So part of this is also me just going through my own personal library at home and sharing with you what it is that I've been reading as a way to you offering up opportunities for you to share what you're reading and to encourage you to continue reading and sharing that reading with other people. So all that to say, today is Unbound. So I know many of us have heard about the Me Too movement. All of us probably at this point have heard about the Me Too movement, hashtag Me Too. And the story goes that Alyssa Milano made a comment on a social media post about, at that point, I think it was Harvey Weinstein and kind of the accusations and things that he now has been, convicted for were coming up. Lots of kind of stories about what was happening around sexual harassment, abuse, and assault in the Hollywood world. And Alyssa Milano shared a hashtag Me Too. And this book actually opens up with Tarana Burke, who is in New York at this time, being woken up by all these kind of dinging noises and kind of this story about, great job, getting the Me Too movement out and getting the Me Too, statement out. And did you know this is going to be, going out everywhere? And she has no idea what they're talking about. Come to find out, she actually had been doing this work around helping Black and Brown, mostly girls or femme identifying people, with stories with, or they're kind of getting over but kind of dealing with and bringing some resources to people who have either been sexually assaulted or abused or exploited. And so she had been doing this work for a really long time and had actually coined the phrase Me Too. It's actually lowercase me, lowercase too, with the kind of single quotation marks and a period after the after two. And that is what she has been using like across her shirts and like other merchandise and other kind of like media, other kind of like books and all different things that she was using as a ways to encourage people to share their stories with each other so that they would not find shame in what had happened to them and to know they were not by themselves. So all of this had been happening for years, and then she gets this notification that people are using this statement and putting a hashtag on it, so it's becoming a viral movement across social media. And one of the things that she automatically was fearful of was the fact that with her Me Too programming that she had been doing, she had been putting resources and supports with it for all of the people who had come forward and shared stories. And she felt very much protective around the people who are like sharing their stories or saying Me Too were not going to have the supports need to help them process what had happened to them. They were kind of making themselves vulnerable for even kind of further harm. And so it starts off with her kind of, trying to frantically figure out, what to do, how she can kind of, help support and how she can also kind of reclaim what had been happening for her in the work that she had been doing kind of on the ground level before it became exploited, in this case by white women in Hollywood. And as a Black identifying person, Caribbean identifying person, she felt really strongly that the message not be co-opted and taken away from the impact it was having on Black and Brown femme identifying people specifically. Not that everyone wasn't also affected by things like sexual assault or sexual abuse, but that we didn't forget about the ones who also were, continuing to be marginalized by this. So this book really goes into actually a little bit about the Me Too movement, but mostly about her own journey about what it meant for her growing up in New York, in the Bronx, as a person who survived sexual assault and sexual abuse and sexual exploitation. It goes through her story of like, living in her situation, and also like, trying to find out different ways like to do more. Like, she wanted to go to college. She wanted, she had like, lots of aspirations of leadership. She had a lot of things that she did, and she continued to kind of grow in her leadership along the way. She also had a big dedication towards nonprofit work and really wanted to dedicate it towards empowering young women. Not so much as a sexual abuse kind of exploitation class or training, but really about being proactive around having affirmation and value in yourself. So all of this is happening, and this book is really about that story and that journey. Um, it is nonfiction, of course. It actually, the full title is Unbound, My Story of Liberation and the Birth of the Me Too Movement. So people who are wanting to know, kind of like where it actually came from and like what the actual, source of the Me Too movement is, would want to read this story. And what it kind of reminds you of, I think, is the fact that there are a lot of people, a lot of children every single day who are put in positions where they're having to unintentionally keep these secrets, this shame and guilt that's held inside of them when they are told that no one should ever touch you in your private spaces, or never let anyone abuse you, or put you in situations that are uncomfortable. And what she talks about is that we don't really talk to them, we don't really talk to our youth about that those are the rules that maybe we're putting in place for as adults for our children, but there are also people who will break those rules, the adults that will take advantage of those children and break those rules, and that's not the children's faults. So being careful about not making a child feel even more victimized or feeling more shameful by making it feel like they broke a rule, versus them understanding that the adults took advantage of them and that the adults are the ones actually who broke the rules. And I think that that's also a really good lesson here. So she talks about kind of overcoming her own shame and guilt of her own situations, her own experiences, the things that happened to her, and then how she shares that with her own child, and how she shares that with the other children in which she works with. So more of a serious, kind of topic. Definitely, I start off by saying it's like this is kind of the story of the Me Too movement, which means it definitely has lots of trigger warnings. And I will try to make sure that I put that towards the beginning of these talks in case people, have things that they need to kind of, think about or are wondering about. But I'll also put that inside of our notes, for this about episodes, so people are aware of that. I will make sure that people are always kind of knowing what I'm talking about ahead of time in case that there are things that are topics that are just a little difficult to kind of process in the moments that we have. But in the meantime, I want to suggest that you read this book. If you're interested in looking at someone's journey around how they help create supports, and worked with youth around things like affirmation and value and voice and choice and power. Um, and personal efficacy. Like this is a really good book to do that. If you want to know more about the founder of the Me Too movement, like actually I found her story really interesting and really compelling. We only kind of see her, in these, kind of big spaces or whatever, in interviews sometimes, but actually hearing her own story, that was really powerful. So today's book was Unbound by Tarana Burke. Um, I recommend it. I recommend all the books that I share with you. Remember, that's part of the whole idea is that like I'm sharing with you books that have touched me or books that maybe kind of think. I hope that you find a book that makes you think. Please continue reading, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me.